Hope that you all had a time to just have a quick cup of coffee, a glass of water, just a quick look out of the window, and then before we go to the next round. And yes, how to build. Now we're into the outlines of the case studies. Study design. Then it's the different steps in how to make a case study research. So first it is about the key evaluation of the question and purpose. So it's about finding out whether this is a real method to use. Is the comparative case study, is that the way we're going to do it? Is the phenomenon of interest, is it significant enough? Is it worth spending a lot of time on? Or saying, no, this is in fact, it is not worthwhile, or this is in fact very interesting, and have interest for others also. The second step is about design of a plan that will shape the structure of the studies upon. So it's at this stage you will show very clearly, define what the case in your case study will be. For example, whether they are individual conversations, events, and so on. Then stage 3 is then you're going to put it into themes, thematizing, identify initial propositions or initial theories, contextual analysis research, use of prior theory versus ethnography, grounded hypothesis. So are you having a theory before you go in, and what you're going to look at and how you're going to analyze it? Or in grounded theory, if you're going to, based on the hypothesis you made, then in fact you are going to theorize based on the data you get, and you're generating theories. Are you going to be deductive or inductive? So that's very important stage also. Then you go to the fourth stage, which is define the type of cases that will be included, how the case study process will be conducted. So here it's very much about which cases are you going to use, what kind of cases will be appropriate or the best in order to the kind of study you're going to make. And then it's about how the process, what are you going to do when, and what kind of data are you going to collect, and how you're going to collect them. Interviews, questionnaires. And it's about the data collection itself. It's again how the evidence or data will be collected, analyzed and synthesized within and across cases. And conduct, implement the study. That's the implementation of it. Then to do it. And then we come to the stage 6, and that's to the analysis. You got all the data, and then you're going to analyze this, and then you're going to see, yeah, but does it fit with the propositions that you put up in the first place, or does the data show you something else? You can't do that. The data tells you, you're on the wrong line. This was not the right way of investigating this topic, this problem, or this phenomenon. And then consider and test alternative explanation for the outcomes. So it's about analyzing and then report. In the last stage is about report to findings. what is always important when doing these things, in this case study, it's always to inform about how you have made the study. So you can do the studies in so many different ways, also the case studies, but it's very much about inform other people how you have made the studies, what you have taken in, how you have collected the cases, and how you are interpreting the cases. Oh, yes. Here you have it more, put it up as a figure. See about the existing theory, and that is deciding on the research question, and it's also deciding what themes are important for the study and the cases, the selected cases. And then you make the case study protocol, which in fact normally always should be, if people would like to look into your study, it should be one way or another, it should be public, so those who would like to read your study, then they can, if they want to control it, that in fact what he's coming up with is in fact it fits with his case study protocol. And if it doesn't fit, of course, the explanations are needed. Then you come to the pilot study. In fact, where you try this case study protocol that it fit, or if there are some challenges listed, then you redo it or remake the case study protocol based on the findings from the pilot study. And then you go to the different cases. Process comparative politics, it's more than one case you're using, and it's about the collection and the data. And then you come to the very interesting part, and that is you make the cross-case comparison. So based on the subject, or the phenomenon, or the problems, then in fact you identify similarity, differences among the cases. And in the end, you make some findings and conclusions and say, based on this, we can make this generalization. We have learned this. It could be interesting for others. And then how to design and conduct a case study. It's about the subject and the relevance. And the subject, for many, it's about the study of phenomenon, but very often it is, how to say, for many it's important that it's problem related. It deals with problems of society, policy problems, problems of interest for decision makers. Then it's to plan and design how you're going to address the study and make sure that all collected data is relevant. And it's just also to ensure that you're not they're wasting time collecting data. Oh, that's interesting, but in fact it's not relevant, because then you can still spend a lot of time in collecting data which in fact is not relevant. So the better you are in narrowing down what in fact is the needed data for this kind of study, the easier you will make it for yourself. And having said that, I would say that it's very easy to say. In reality, it can be more difficult. And there are also some, as we will explain later, which goes in for it. It's so important to have how to say data which is related to, let's say, not just in the center of your study, but also on the boundaries of your study, because that can in fact have a wider implication for the thing that you're studying. And you put it into bullet point, and then it's observing. So that you are there, and that could be also one thing to look into. It's about the observing, and there's a lot of discussions on these issues, which is what kind of observing we do, whether it's participant observation or non-participant observation. Then is the designing, shaping, and scoping a case study research project in order to adequately answer research questions. Then that's the, how to say, the protocol for the study. And then you need to have obtaining the participation of organization in case study research. So you need to get the involvement of the organization that you're going to study, if it's organization you're going to study. And you have to have their permission. That's all the formal. Of course, there are some exceptions, but in general, that's a rule that you need to. People have to know, in fact, what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's for ethical reasons, and so that no misuse are taking place. Then, in the case study, then it's data collection. Then we have the quantity method. That's very much about statistical, the large analysis, survey research, quantitative technique, demonstrations of your service, survey service. And for many years, there was a strong preference to the quantitative methods in case studies research. And that was a reason for that. One thing was if you have more cases, it's like having cases, then more, then you know more about how the situation is. But it was also said that this kind of study was non-biased. And of course, that can be questioned because if you make a survey, you get a large number of informants, in fact, that you haven't, that can be biased in the question. So then we have the qualitative methods in case study research. Field research is a qualitative method of data collection, understanding, observing, interacting with people in their natural settings. Part of this is ethnographic research was considered previously. So here it's observation is very important, being an observer, one way or another. So it's about choose a side, and then you can have many kinds of interviews. You can interview individual groups. You can focus groups, or you can have key informants. You can have normally group processes. And then the interviews, they can be structures that can be used when the researcher has some knowledge of stuff. All participants are offered the same set of questions, so responses can be compared. Then you have semi-structured, which is between a continuum between structured and unstructured interviews. So this is addressing a number of predetermined questions at the top. Then yeah, unstructured, they are particularly well suited to sensitive research questions. A flexible topic guide may be used, and the topic guide may be dispensed with entirely. Unstructured interviews can also be used, in fact, in order to find out what is the most important issues for those you're going to interview. Because sometimes it's when you come in with prepositions, and then you find out what you were thinking in your office or study room. In fact, it's not important, or they have no perspective on the people that you have chosen for interviews. So in fact, by doing that, we can find out in fact what is in fact very important questions for the people that we interview in the study that we are undertaking. Then we have informal, casual conversation, and they often occur in relation to formal interviews. Details of these conservation are often not auditable, are usually recorded as films. And particularly in anthropology and geography and social geography, you find it, and ethnography, you find this informal. And in fact, by this informal conversation, in fact, you can get a lot of information and more in-depth information, and you can get perspectives on some issues that in fact you didn't have in, because it's also when you talk when you're interviewing people, then it's a very formal setting, and I maybe think that they withhold. So these informal interviews can in fact be very important for understanding particularly backgrounds for the topic you're studying. Analyzing of the quality of research. Then there are different sorts of theories which are used in comparative politics. There are some main areas. We talk about the rational choice. Level analysis is very much on the microanalysis, and it's very much independent variable. It's very much about individual preferences. And intervening variables is very much which is outside that the institutions. And dependable variables, it could be decisions, allocation of resources, and positions, and role of institutions make collective action policy possible. Then we have historical institutionalism. It's a macro level. It's very much institutional arrangement. The variable is the time. Then possible independent variables for system of regulation, public policies, movements. And then structure, the role of institutional structure, the context of the political processes. And the last one of the main present here is a sociological institutionalism, which is the meso level. It's about institutional and cultural system. It's about meaning. And there, the meanings can be very different from different actors, social actors. And dependent variables could be decisions and strategies. Different groups use different strategies in order to achieve different goals. So it's about shaping the identity of the actors of the relevant institutions. So this was the presentations about how to make a study, a comparative study, different kind of theories in lesson 2. And now it's in fact, today you'll be given a homework assignment, and it will be due next Friday. You will have 1 week in order to do it, and it will be based on the class 1, the first 2 classes. And then you are expected to work towards, you have to write a text on a particularly topic related to our first lecture themes. And you can choose freely, but the analyzer needs to include a research question that relates somehow to the comparative politics based And here we take from the US context. For instance, you need to identify an issue, problem, dilemma that you want to explore. The final paper should be a minimum of 500 words and a maximum of 750 words, including photos, excluding the SNP. And please bear in mind, at least 500, not more than 750. In fact, it will strongly influence your grade if you write less or if you write more. The main purpose of this assignment is to start developing a strong methodological approach dealing with comparison concepts. The extended analysis should include the following: a short introduction to the particular case study being explored, what issue, problem, dynamic, event that you are looking at, a specific research question that will guide them, and then a methodological section in which students need to explain in which ways they are going to connect. And then related to how we are going to report. Needless to say, it should all be submitted in Canvas. That's where also you can find the homework assignment. That's in fact very important. Afterwards here you will get an assignment for today, and you can use information from that assignment in making the homework. If you have any questions, contact me. Then I will try to answer as quickly as possible. So that was the assignment. So you have 1 week for it. Now the rest of this session today, it's about it's assignment I will give you, and it relates to one of the articles I gave you, and it's the article of Ben Fluger. Ben Fluger, he's I have to say, yeah, but he's a Dane, but he's a professor at Oxford University. And he has been really one of those working with case studies and one of the propagators for case studies. And he has also been able to develop it even more. Because for many years, the case studies was belittled and seen as non-science. The value of generalization was very low. Large numbers was better than small numbers, and single case studies, they were frowned upon in relation to generalization. So they were hardly of any use for decision makers or for others to use. And Ben Fluger is part of a trend which is challenging them, and he's been writing very much about social science and particularly in relation to the case studies. And it is in fact, his articles are very worth reading, and also some of his book about social science. And it's very much he's using something which is called phronetic, which is taken from Aristotle, about how to argue a case and how to identify cases, which in fact, this kind of argument is making a line back to Aristotle. Based on his article, you shall answer the following question. The article is about the 5 misunderstandings, which are very common related to the critique of the case study. So first it's about describe briefly the 5 misunderstandings related to the critique of the case study method. And then you have to write what is a critical case, and how do you, according to Fluger, become good in undertaking case studies? How do you become a good researcher in case studies? And Then it's about identifying possible challenges when applying previous perspective on case study methods when undertaking comparative policy research. Because in comparative policy research, you have always to have at least 2 case studies that you should compare. Um, yeah. So, for instance, can you apply a clinical case study or a paradigmatic case study to comparative politics? I would like to have to pick your brain on the last questions. So, and just to tell you a little bit in relation to Benflupia, it's about how it's about this favors its apprentices way of thinking. So it's again saying when we finish university, oh, we have our degrees, and then we are experts in doing some things. And in reality, that is not the case. We have learned a lot of things that we can use, and then based on that we used, we get out and get some practical skills. So we learn a lot of things on the way. And we also learn that one thing is textbook, and the other thing is in fact practice. So this is also a way when we learn about case studies. It's about when you're making your first case studies, you're on your knees, and then of course you try the best based on what you have read and things like that. And then in fact you learn a lot of things on the way, and then you become better and better doing these different things that you're doing undertaking case studies. So practice is very much important. This was a little help to one of the questions, but you can see it from the text also, which you should have read for today. So this will be the end of the session for today from my side. I wish you all a good post. That means happy Easter in Danish. Directly translated, it means good Easter. But I wish you all also all the best, and that you're gonna have a good Holy Friday, and even on Sunday that you celebrate with your family, despite the coronavirus. And otherwise, take care, and I hope you will enjoy the task that I've given. Bye bye. Have a good day.